this is actually interesting. Here is Nancy Pelosi. She was on AM Joy this weekend, and I'm playing this in part because of an interesting piece by Howie Klein over at Down with Tyranny. Howie Klein has been an incredibly consistent critic of aspects of Pelosi. He is, if you want to get a good assessment of what is structurally wrong with Democrats in Congress, you're not going to do better than reading Down with Tyranny. And he has an interesting piece, but let's listen first to Nancy Pelosi on with Jonathan Gephardt on AM Joy.
Election this year. They interviewed, you see it there, Democrats opposing Pelosi. And these are the 51 people who were surveyed who are candidates. 42 of them are not Democratic nominees. 9 of them are incumbents who have said that they will not support you in the run for Speaker.
Well, let me just say first.
One, I mean, why not, if the Democrats take back the House, give up the gavel?
Well, first of all, let me just say this, and I know NBC has been on a jag of this. This is one of their priorities, to undermine my prospects as Speaker. But putting that aside, I have not asked one person for a vote. I haven't asked a candidate or an incumbent for a vote. What's important, and I know better than anybody how important it is for us to win this election, because I see up close and personal what the Republicans and this president are doing.
All right, so let's just examine this for a minute. And Howie Klein makes some pretty good points. A significant number of people who are coming out at this stage saying they would vote against her will vote for a more conservative leader of the House. And from Howie Klein's perspective, he says there are basically 2 things that you should pay attention to. One is, are Democrats going to allow the GOP to define their own leader? In other words, this idea that somehow Nancy Pelosi is a liability because she has San Francisco values and et cetera, which is used in a lot of Republican, it's a lot of Republican talking points. They use it across the country. They are very effective at having made her into a demon. Howie points out that when Bernie Sanders founded the Congressional Caucus, I think the Progressive Caucus, in 1991, there are only 5 of the first 20 members still serving in the House. Pete DeFazio, Maxine Waters, Nydia Velázquez, Jerry Nadler, and Nancy Pelosi. She quit that. She was rather progressive. She was, she wanted and rallied most of the Democrats to oppose the Iraq War resolution in 2002. But when she became minority leader, she resigned from the caucus. She has, according to Howie Klein, toned down her ideological bent until it ceased to exist. He is not a fan of hers, not ideologically, and certainly not in terms of the way that she's run the DCCC, or at least appointed people to it. But he says, one, are Democrats going to allow the GOP to define their own leader? And of course, it doesn't matter where the next House leader comes from. Republicans are going to say this person has San Francisco values, even if they're from Ohio, or they're going to say some version of that. The other question, and this is the more important one, and this has been one that, I've articulated in the past. If you replace her, is it because you have someone better to put in? There is a dearth of progressive leadership. There are people, but are those people going to be the people who are going to replace Pelosi? That is very, very important when you look to people supporting. And Howie's been, praised folks like AOC for saying, let's worry about that when we get in. Let me focus on my race and get in. The people who are coming out more often than not, who are committing to voting against Pelosi, are doing it from the right because they think it's going to help them distance themselves and ward off Republican attacks. So just be conscious of that. There's some talk that Pelosi's going to go after the first 100 days if they take the House. That would be great. But again, we want someone better, not someone worse. Keep that in mind.